Hello students, good evening all. I hope you all are doing great. Well, welcome back to the live streaming of the daily news analysis series. Today we'll be understanding the important news articles of 27th May 2022 and I am your educator Prithviraj Singh. Let us begin with the session. So on the very front page of the Hindu, there was an article about Prime Minister Modi visiting Tamil Nadu, and there he has met the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, M.K. Stalin. And we all know that it is a visit on the backdrop of Sri Lankan crisis. It's a political economic crisis, and Prime Minister Modi has assured that India is giving every support that is required for the economic recovery of Sri Lanka. We have given a diesel consignment, the emergency credit line, so on and so forth. So Prime Minister has clearly said that the government of India would assist all the Tamils in the island nation, that is in Sri Lanka. If you know about the demography of Sri Lanka, you would come to understand that the northern part of Sri Lanka, the northern part of the island nation, is basically called as Jaffna province. Jaffna province. And this part is majorly occupied, dominant by Tamil Indians, Tamils from India, right? So this is your Sri Lanka, and the northern part of Sri Lanka, which is Jaffna province, is dominated by Tamilians or the Tamil Indians. So he is saying, Prime Minister is saying that he would assist the Tamils in the island nation. He would talk about the rights, because Jaffna province was being militarized, right? So there were many agreements to demilitarize the northern province of Sri Lanka. He said that every support would be given by the government of India, to support democracy, stability and economic recovery of Sri Lanka. The financial support, fuel, food, medicine and other essential items are being supplied by the Indian government, and this is an opportunity for the Indian government to actually gain the support and the trust of the people. So it is an opportunity for the India to win the trust and confidence of the people of Sri Lanka, because they have since the last decade has seen Sri Lanka has tilted away from India and tilted towards China. So this is an opportune time for India. In this sense, Prime Minister, you would be remembering, also visited Sri Lanka, and he became the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Jaffna province. As I was mentioning, Jaffna province, the northern part of the Sri Lanka. So Prime Minister Modi became the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Jaffna, correct? And it's been an year, for when he visited Jaffna. Now the the Tamil Chief Minister M.K. Stalin is saying that, and he has quoted the statement that it is the right time to retrieve Chichiti Island, which was given by India to Sri Lanka in the year 1974 by Indira Gandhi government. So very, very important. M.K. Stalin, the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, is saying that the Chichiti Island, which was given by India, or which was ceded by India to Sri Lanka in the year 1974, must be retrieved. And he says that it was a historic blunder by Indira Gandhi government and it has to be retrieved, right? So very, very important, Chichiti Island, and we'll be discussing the same. At the same time, Prime Minister Modi has also talked about the Tamil language, about the Dravidian language and the things, because we know that there has been a language controversy going on in the country after the spark between Ajay Devgan and the Southern film star. So Tamil language is eternal, as said by Modi, and the Tamil culture is global. And recently inaugurated a new campus named Central Institute of Classical Tamil was inaugurated in Chennai, and very, very important. And they may ask you this question, that the Central Institute of Classical Tamil was inaugurated in which among the following places? So the answer is Chennai. And recently Subramaniam Bharati chair on Tamil has also been constituted at Banaras Hindu University. Right, so Subramaniam Bharati chair on Tamil studies. So they may ask you that Subramaniam Bharati chair for the Tamil studies is being constituted at which among the following educational institutions or which among the following universities? So the answer would be BHU. The national education policy also gives special importance to promoting Indian languages. So this is something which has to be which should be very clear to all, because national NEP is devoting for the promotion of Indian languages, right? And we all know that the Tamil Nadu governor R.N. Ravi was also present there. So let us understand about the Sri Lankan topography, its geographical position. As you can see on the screen, this is the mainland India, and here is Tamil Nadu as a state, and this is a pictorial representation of Park Bay. Right, so Park Bay is a narrow passage of water which connects two mainlands, that is Sri Lanka and India. Right, so near Park Bay only you have Adams Bridge, right, which is also being in mythology it is also being said to be the Ram Setu. Right, so the Park Bay, and this is the Gulf of Mannar connecting Indian Ocean to Bay of Bengal. Now here, as you can see Park Bay, and here is India, Kotai Pattanam, Park Bay, Bay of Bengal, and Gulf of Mannar. And here you have some islands like Delph Island, and here only you have Kachativu Island. Correct. So you can see in the map Jaffna, the northern province of Sri Lanka, which is dominated by the Indian Tamils, and this is your Adams Bridge. As you can see clearly, Adams Bridge, also called as Ram Setu, right? So Adams Bridge, how it connects Mandapam with the Sri Lankan island, and here itself you have a Kachativu Island, right? So now we are in the position to understand Kachativu Island. As you can see on the screen, guys, Tamil Nadu, which is the southern state of India, and this is Sri Lanka's Jaffna province, the Park Strait and Rameshwaram. Here somewhere near in the Park Strait, this disputed island of Kachativu exists, Kachativu Island. Now Kachativu Island is an uninhabited offshore island in Park Strait. That means it is not inhabited by any human beings. It is an uninhabited offshore island, originally owned by the king of Ramnath. Ramnath today is being called as Ramnathpuram, right? So जो Ramnathpuram के जो राजा थे, it was being owned by the king of Ramnathpuram, and the island is today being used by the fishermen to dry their nets. क्योंकि जो इंडियन फिशरमैन या जो श्रीलंकन फिशरमैन जो क्रॉस करते हैं, I mean they do the fishing in the territorial waters, and in fact they also sometime knowingly or unknowingly they cross the international maritime border line, IMBL. Well, the island is used by the fishermen to dry their nets, correct? Now during the British rule, this island was being jointly administered by India as well as Sri Lanka, and in the early 20th century, that means after the independence, Sri Lanka claimed the territorial ownership of this island, right? So after independence, because before independence it was jointly administered by both India and Sri Lanka as per the British India's policy, but post independence Sri Lanka started claiming the territorial ownership of Kachativu. Now it happened that in the year 1974, during Indira Gandhi government's era, an agreement was being arrived between India and Sri Lanka, and in this agreement India ceded the ownership of Kachativu Island to Sri Lanka. That means it gave away the ownership of Kachativu Island to Sri Lanka, correct? Now this agreement, as the Tamil politicians say, that Tamil Nadu and the southern states were not being consulted before ceding Kachativu to Sri Lanka. So it is a betrayal on the southern states, and therefore they are never happy with this agreement, and they always claim Kachativu as their part. And in fact many Tamil fishermen cross the international maritime boundary line. They go to Chichiti Island, they dry their nets, and in fact they have to cross the Chichiti to get the good fishing, good fishes, good catch. And in this process they themselves are being caught by the Sri Lankan naval forces, and many fishermen, Indian fishermen are in prisons in Sri Lanka. So this is the Chichiti Island issue. And in fact even India further gave up its fishing rights in the region. So therefore it was something which the southern politicians say that it is a historic blunder by the Indian government. Well, the small island of Chichiti is used by the fishermen for sorting their catch and drying their nets, as I just said, and it fell on the other side of the IMBL. ठीक है, so international maritime boundary line के दूसरी साइड में, मतलब श्रीलंकन waters के अंदर वो lie करता है. And as I said, that fishermen often risk their lives and cross the IMBL, rather than returning empty-handed. So well, the reasons for the continuation, the main problem with Indian fishermen is that a large number of them are dependent on fishing in Sri Lankan waters, which have a good marine resources, which is right, but then it is prohibited by 1976 Maritime Boundary Agreement. So 74 में Chichiti Island was being ceded to Sri Lanka, and 76 में you had the Maritime Boundary Agreement. Also, large number of Indian fishermen are dependent on trawling, which is banned in Sri Lanka. Trawling means जो deep nets होते हैं, जो ग्राउंड में जाते हैं, राइट, और उसको पूरे जो रिसोर्सेज है उसको कैप्चर करते हैं, राइट. सो दैट इज कॉल्ड एज बॉटम ट्राउलिंग. नाउ द प्रॉब्लम विद बॉटम ट्राउलिंग इज दैट इट एक्चुअली डिस्ट्रॉयज ऑल द मरीन रिसोर्सेज, even the herbs etc. which are at the ocean floor. So therefore it is being banned by Sri Lanka. So this issue of Chichiti Island was being raised by the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, M.K. Stalin. Well, we know that Sri Lanka is facing the twin deficits. When I say twin deficit, I mean that they have huge fiscal deficit plus the trade deficit. We know that fiscal deficit is nothing but the difference between the total expenditure minus total revenue, excluding debt creating capital receipts. It actually reflects the total borrowing requirements of the government. That means how much deficit is of the government, the difference between the total expenditure and total revenue. Plus trade deficit is the difference between the exports minus imports. Correct. That means you are importing more than you are exporting, right? And if you are importing more than you are exporting, that means you are paying in dollars, and you will pay it from your foreign exchange reserves. Correct. So when there is huge trade deficit, that means your foreign exchange reserves are being depleted because you are paying back in dollars from the foreign exchange reserves, thereby depleting your foreign exchange reserves. Similar to fiscal deficit means the government is spending more than it is earning. Correct. So therefore it has to finance its expenditure. So Sri Lanka is a classic case of twin deficit as given up by the report of Asian Development Bank in the year 2019. In fact, the Rajapaksa government, I mean, it's being said that it's a family-run government. All the brothers of the Rajapaksa family are at the top posts. I mean, the president, the prime minister, although Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has resigned from his position after the protests. Although many other Rajapaksa family members, like the finance minister, Basil, etc., they all are there in the office. So the government accelerated deep tax cuts during a 2019 election campaign that were enacted months before COVID-19 pandemic. अब ये deep tax cuts जो किए तो government की revenue कम हो गई, right? And the burden would definitely fall on the future generation. Either the government would increase the taxes or cut the subsidies, right? At the same time, Sri Lankan industry economy is heavily dependent on tourism sector and the foreign workers remittances, and COVID and the bombings in the church, the terror attack, were actually came as an onslaught on the tourism industry. So therefore its economy nosedived. Similarly, the Rajapaksa government's decision to ban all the chemical fertilizers in 2021 and to promote the organic farming, a move that was later reversed, also hit the country's farm sector and triggered a drop in critical rice crop. Correct. Plus, Sri Lanka's poor debt management program also, worsened the crisis. So these are the major reasons behind the Sri Lankan economic crisis. And as of February, the country is being left with only $2.3 billion foreign exchange reserve. When you compare it with India, well, India's foreign exchange reserve is somewhere around $670 billion, and Sri Lanka is just $2.3 billion. India is $670 billion. So there is no comparison. So it is so low that it cannot sustain even for a day, and faces debt repayments of around $4 billion in 2022, including a $1 billion international sovereign bond (ISB) maturing in the month of July. Right. So therefore, Sri Lanka is in deep crisis. Well, India has come out, and India has given the emergency credit line. We have also supplied the diesel consignments, the diesel shipments under $500 million credit line. So Sri Lanka is hoping for the assistance on fuel from India. Similarly, China is also, assisting financially the island nation. At the same time, India have also signed a $1 million credit line for importing essentials, including food and medicine, so on and so forth. I hope it is clear. So moving to the next news article, guys, on the screen. Well, there has been talks about Mandir Wapsi, and after the judicial resolution of Ram Janmabhoomi in Ayodhya, many cases have been filed in the courts about Hindu temples, claiming that, they say that the mosque which is being present today was nothing but the Hindu temple. We have learned about the Janmabhoomi mosque case in our previous DNA sessions. Now many other cases are being filed in the court, and one such case is Sri Krishna Janmasthan or Janmabhoomi case. Well, you all know, in the mythology, it's being said that Lord Krishna was born in Mathura in a prison. He was being born out of Nandan and Devika, right? Devaki and Nandan, and he was born in prison. And it's being said that the actual birthplace, the prison in which he was born, today lies at Shahi Eidgah Mosque in Mathura. And this mosque is being, as claimed by the Hindu petitioners, is a birthplace of Lord Krishna. And just in the nearby Shahid Eidgah Mosque, the Sri Krishna Janmasthan, Sri Krishna temple is already being built. Now this is a case of Shahid Eidgah Mosque, Sri Krishna Janmabhoomi dispute. It's being said that Lord Krishna was being born there, and that there are signs that a temple existed at the site before. So let us understand the Krishna Janmabhoomi case on the screen. Well, Emperor Aurangzeb in 1670s was demolishing various temples across India. One such temple was Janmabhoomi, as being said by petitioners, and similarly Krishna Janmabhoomi, Krishna temple. It was being believed to be the birthplace of Lord Krishna, and Aurangzeb demolished this temple in the year 1670, and in place of the temple he built a mosque on the site of an earlier temple, and the area was being regarded as Nazul land. Nazul land means non-agricultural estate land owned by the Marathas and then by the British. Well, before the mosque was built, Raja Veer Singh Bundela of Orcha had also built a temple on the same premises in the year 1618. That means I mean, Aurangzeb demolished the temple in the year 1670 and built a mosque. But even before 1670, that means in 1618, Raja Veer Singh Bundela of Orcha also built a temple on the same premises in 1618. Now coming to 1815, Raja Patni Mal of Banaras bought the 13.7 acres of land in an auction from East India Company. Post that, the descendants of Raja Patni Mal, Raja Kishan Das and Rai Anand Das, they sold the land to Jugal Kishore Birla. तो जो वहाँ पे मंदिर बनाया था, उसके बाद 1670 में it was being demolished and then Aurangzeb built a mosque. 1815 में Raja Patni Mal of Banaras bought 13 acres land and from the East India Company, and his descendants Raja Kishan Das and Rai Anand Das, they sold the land to a businessman Jugal Kishore Birla for 13,400, and it was being registered in the name of Pandit Madan Mohan Malviya. And later Shri Krishna Janmabhoomi Trust or Janmabhoomi Nyas was being set up by Birla family, and it acquired the ownership rights over the Katra Keshav Dev temple. And in 1951, after independence, the 13.7 acres were being placed in the trust with the condition that the trust property will never be sold or pledged. तो अब issue क्या है? अब आपने when you look at this picture, you'll understand that this is the same premises. On the left side you have a mosque being built, on the right you have a temple. But the petitioners are saying that a place where you have the mosque is the original birthplace of Lord Krishna, and it was the prison where Lord Krishna was born. They're asking for the archaeological survey excavations to actually get the actual picture. So in this sense, in 56, the Sri Krishna Janmasthan Seva Sangh was being set up to manage the affairs of the temple, and in 1977 the word Sangh in the registered society's name was replaced with Sansthan, so it became Sri Krishna Janmasthan Seva Sansthan. Now the petitioners argue that the original Karagar or the prison where Lord Krishna is believed to have been born lies beneath the construction raised by the Committee of Management Trust, Masjid Eidgah, and that the true fact will come out before the court after the archaeological survey excavation. Well, in September 2020, the court dismissed the plea on grounds of maintainability, holding that the petitioners did not have locus standi and could not be the next of the kin of the deity. That means the petitioner is not the next of the kin of the deity when a temple management authority already exists. The court also said that the temple and the Shahi Eidgah had entered into a compromise in 1968, which had been subsequently formalized through a decree of the court. Well, what the 1968 compromise says, as I said that the court is saying that the compromise has already been arrived between the Shahid Eidgah and the Devasthan, Krishna Bhumi Devasthan. Well, the petitioners are saying that this compromise is unjustified, and the tenants of the Eidgah were asked to vacate so a new temple could come up, and this is what the compromise was. The boundaries were redrawn so both the places of worship could operate simultaneously. A wall separated them, and it was agreed that the mosque would have no window, door or open drain facing the temple. तो ये compromise था 1968 का कि हम समझ रहे हैं, we accept and we compromise each other's claim, and we accept each other's claim, and you be happy with the mosque, and the Hindu temple would also run nearby, but on the condition that the wall would be there between them, and to be agreed that there would be no window, door or open drain of the mosque facing the temple. The petitioners today say that the agreement was made fraudulently and is invalid in law. In any case, the deity was not part of the proceedings, and his rights cannot be extinguished by the agreement, right? So because the DT is not the part of the proceedings and his rights cannot be extinguished by the agreement, so therefore this agreement of 1968 is based on, it is fraudulent. So this was the article about the Krishna Janmabhoomi, and the case is there making the news. Well, coming to the next news article on the screen. ADB, Asian Development Bank, which has its headquarters at Manila, Philippines, and it was something which was asked in Clat examination, that ADB in the year 2018, it was being asked in Clat examination that where is the headquarters of ADB located? So the answer is Manila, Philippines. The article says that because there was COVID-induced, loss of learning, the schools were being shut down, the colleges, universities were being shut for almost 2 years, and this has led to learning loss, and this would actually dent India's GDP in the future, because the people who will be passed out from this system would not contribute to the GDP of the country. And in this graph here, as you can see, this is a UNESCO data which show that schools in India closed for 82 weeks due to the pandemic, and these are the number of weeks when the schools were being closed. So India has highest 82 weeks school closures, full closures, and the partial closures. As you can see, India is has the highest school closures, even much more than our neighbors like Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, so on and so forth. So in this sense, India, which is among the countries with the longest school closures during COVID-19 pandemic, will see the highest decline in South Asia due to learning losses for the young, right? So the GDP would drastically fall because of these learning losses in the future, and approximately it experienced a hit of $99 million by 2030, and it would translate into around 3.19% reduction in GDP from the baseline growth trends. So guys, India may thus account for over 10% of the global GDP decline of $943 billion, right? So this is a starking reality and an eye-opener to the loss that has come to the education sector and how it would adversely affect the GDP. Data important for students to understand it's the impact of COVID-19 on education and how in turn it impacts the GDP of the country. So this is the explanation of the same. Well, these are the government initiatives which to promote education, like Swayam, NEET, National Knowledge Network, Pragyata Guidelines, National Program on Technology Enhanced Learning, so on and so forth. Well, moving to the editorial page on the screen. The article was about the elimination of measles and rubella. Well, earlier the target was 2020, but India missed it because of the pandemic. Now they have revised the target for the elimination of measles and rubella by the year 2023. So let us understand this article. As I said, that the government decided to eliminate measles and rubella from India by 2020, but it missed it because of pandemic, and it is being again set to 2023. The basic plan was to create a very high level of vaccination induced immunity against both the diseases, that is M and R, measles and rubella, by inoculating MR vaccine. MR vaccine means measles rubella vaccine. So this article talks about the universalization of the MR vaccine, because the target to eradicate MR or measles rubella is now being set to 2023. Well, the government is looking at the school-based vaccination program, which would be convenient for all, and the target is for the elimination is being reset to 2023. So you must understand this, and they may ask you that what is the new target for the elimination of measles rubella. So it is 2023. Earlier it was 2020, and post that, before that it was 2015. So from 2015 to 2020 to 2023. Well, the MR elimination is defined as zero transmission of measles and rubella viruses. So they both are from the virus family. You must understand that measles and rubella are from virus family, and the MR elimination is defined as zero transmission of measles and rubella viruses evidenced by zero clinical disease sustained over 3 years. मतलब 3 साल तक there must be zero clinical disease. इस तरीके का ये कैंपेन है. Well, the two arms of the intervention are vaccination and surveillance. क्योंकि if surveillance is not there, then there is no point of in going ahead with the vaccination program. Surveillance helps identify places where either virus is still in transmission, so that the vaccination can be pinpointed there to stop further spread. So surveillance actually keeps you aware about the transmission of the virus, and you come to know about the places where the virus is already there, and then you devise the policies to stop such transmission. Well, the 2 doses of MR vaccine covering at least 95% children below 5 years, the first dose between 9 and 11 months, and the second dose ideally in the second year of life should suffice. So in this sense, the disease is basically fever plus a red rash on the skin, right? So generally इसके अंदर fever होता है plus red rashes होते हैं body के ऊपर. A fever rash combination has several causes and a throat swab. Urine or blood sample are collected and tested in the laboratory for identifying measles or rubella, right? So in this sense, this article also talks about that how district administration can go ahead with devising an excellent infrastructure facility. If the administration under the active leadership of the DM or the district collector activates the task force mechanism overseeing the UIP or universal inoculation program that is managed by a district immunization officer, then the MR elimination target can be reached within 6 to 9 months from start. So it actually points to the important role that is to be played by the district administration. Well, measles actually killed 1% of all under 5 children, that is stalking data. At the same time, measles affects the immune system, rendering the child vulnerable to other infectious diseases, leading to high mortality over the next 2 to 3 years. Well, in most of the individuals, rubella infection is either without symptoms or with a short fever and a skin rash that is less pronounced than that of measles. So this is the basic difference between the measles and the rubella virus. जहाँ measles के अंदर हमने डिस्कस किया कि रेड रैशेज होते हैं, हाई फीवर होता है, करेक्ट. ये क्वेश्चन पूछा जा सकता है कि रुबेला और मीजल्स के अंदर क्या डिफरेंस है. तो मीजल्स के अंदर हाई फीवर प्लस रेड रैशेज होते हैं स्किन के ऊपर, बट रुबेला के अंदर शॉर्ट फीवर होता है और स्किन रैशेज बहुत कम होते हैं, राइट. एक बात, तो रुबेला इन्फेक्शन इज जनरली विदाउट सिम्टम्स, और अगर सिम्टम्स हुए भी तो वो बहुत शॉर्ट फीवर और स्किन रैशेज होते हैं थोड़े से. बट व्हेन यू कंपेयर इट विद मीजल्स डेफिनेटली is symptomatic. It has high fever and the red rashes on the skin, correct. Now unfortunately, even a pregnant woman gets infected. The virus has a tendency to cross the placenta and damage the developing fetus, eyes, brain, heart and other tissues. So in this sense, and this is also called as, it also lead to the heart defects and the developmental delays, something called as congenital rubella syndrome, CRS, congenital rubella syndrome. Fortunately, the CRS is preventable with vaccination if given prior to pregnancy. Guys, we are in May 2022 with 19 months available to achieve the target, correct. क्योंकि target है 2023 का. जनवरी का। अब हम मई के अंदर तो आ ही गए हैं, मतलब सॉरी दिसंबर का टारगेट है, दिसंबर 2023, टारगेट इज दिसंबर 2023, करेक्ट। तो 12 मंथ्स 2023 के, और ये जो करीब 7 मंथ्स जो है अभी इसमें 2022 के, सो 12 + 7 19, सो अभी 19 मंथ्स है हमारे पास टू अचीव दिस टारगेट। So, in spite of the pandemic, nationally the Universal Immunization Program (UIP) has maintained about 85% MR second dose coverage below 5 years. Correct. So important. Now this is the factual details about the measles and rubella. Well, as I said that measles is symptomatic. The symptoms are high fever and the red rashes on the skin. It is highly contagious, very important, highly contagious viral disease, and is a cause of death among young children globally. It is particularly dangerous for children from the EW category, as it attacks the malnourished children and those with reduced immunity. Okay, so it is very, very contagious. Measles is highly contagious. It is symptomatic, correct. It can cause serious complications including blindness, encephalitis and severe diarrhea, ear infection and pneumonia. ठीक है, तो ये highly contagious है. When you compare it with rubella is also called as German measles. ये भी एक measles की category इसको माना गया है, although it is also viral disease, but a different type of measles also called as German measles. So very important, I expect a question on this. Rubella is also called as German measles. And rubella is contagious, not as high as measles. It is generally mild, जो हमने पढ़ा था ये mild है, whereas measles के जो है high symptoms होते हैं, high fever और skin rashes होना. It has mild viral infection that occurs most often in children and young adults. Rubella infection in pregnant women may cause death or congenital defects known as CRS, congenital rubella syndrome, which causes irreversible birth defects. These are some important takeaways from this article. I hope it is clear. So you just so if I talk about the UIP or Universal Immunization Program, it was the program of the government launched in the year 1985 for the children and the pregnant women. It was being, to prevent the 12 vaccine preventable diseases like tuberculosis, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, polio, hepatitis B, pneumonia, meningitis due to Haemophilus influenza type B, measles, rubella, Japanese encephalitis, rotavirus, diarrhea. Right. So this is the article. Moving to the next news article, very important on the screen. Well guys, we all know about the acquittal of Perarivalan, the assassinator of the former Prime Minister of India, Rajiv Gandhi. Now Perarivalan, the Rajiv Gandhi assassination took place in the year 1991, and after serving almost 3 decades in jail, 30 years in jail, he was being released from the jail just a few days back, and we had an important DNA live streaming session over the same. You can refer for more details there. Now in this article, the issue which is being explored is that of pardon, which is a power used by both the president and the governor. However, we have understood the differences between the pardoning powers of the governor and president. The pardoning power of the president is mentioned in Article 72 and that of governor in the Article 161. Governor cannot pardon death sentence. Governor cannot pardon court-martial cases, and he cannot pardon all the offences against the union law. So pardoning death sentence is an exclusive right of the president under Article 72. Well, however, governor can pardon those sentences for which the punishment is not death penalty. Are you getting? Because pardon means to set the person free. It is it is like you're setting the person free, you're absolving all the guilts all the convictions, all the punishments. So that is called as pardon. Well, we all know that the death sentence of the Rajiv Gandhi assassinators was being commuted to life imprisonment. As justice delayed is justice denied, and the case was won by the lawyer Ram Jethmalani, the most prominent lawyer of the country. Post that, when the case went to the Tamil Nadu, when the ball went to the Tamil Nadu governor used the remission powers, and remission power, the time period is being altered, is being reduced. So the death sentence, which was commuted to life imprisonment, was being remitted, by the governor of Tamil Nadu then. And surprisingly, and to the surprise of all, it was being remitted to 0 years. Again, the case went to the Supreme Court. The court said that you cannot, remit the punishments to 0 years for heinous offences like the murder of the Prime Minister of the country. So again, these convicts were serving the jail in Tamil Nadu, and because of the good conduct of Perari Valan, he was there in the jail for 30 years. He did he obtained many degrees there, and he had a fair conduct in the jail. And that is the reason why the state government of Tamil Nadu, the state cabinet of Tamil Nadu, advised the governor of Tamil Nadu, who is R.N. Ravi, to remit or to pardon, in fact, the Perari Valan, who is the killer of Rajiv Gandhi. But Ravi, the governor of Tamil Nadu, sent this application to the president. Now the case was a fight. It was a fight between the president's pardoning powers and that of the governor. That does the governor have any right to send any advice of the state government to the president, because the advice of the state cabinet is binding on the governor, even for the exercise of the judicial powers. But central government was of opinion that such remissions are then exclusive domain of the president, because the original punishment was the death sentence. Now the case was in deadlock. No action was being taken up. No decision was arriving. Supreme Court stepped into, and they, by using the extraordinary powers to ensure complete justice in the country, they invoked Article 142 and decided to acquit, to pardon Perari Valan, who was the assassinator of Rajiv Gandhi. Now the article explores that are there any dangers of arbitrariness in remission. That means if remission can be done so easily by using Article 142, is there any risk that it would land up into arbitrariness? Judiciary may start using, or executive may start abusing the powers, and are there any dangers of arbitrariness? Well, this article, which is again, this says that this was a victory of federalism. It spurred the tendency to endorse any arbitrary decision with respect to remission or pardon. Right. Now the governors are not sitting on bills passed by the state legislatures without performing their duties. They are sitting on the bills. They are actually exploring the position of the governor, which is the agent of the center in the state and a key link and bridge between the center and the state. Are you getting my point? So therefore, many commissions were up to reform the position of governor, starting from the Panchi Commission, Sarkariya Commission, State ARC, Administrative Reforms Commission. They all talked about reforming the post of the governor, because governor wears two hats, one as an agent of the center and second as the executive head of the state government. So his position is being abused by the central government time and again, because governor occupies the office on the pleasure of president. He is appointed by the president and he is removed on the whims and fancies of the president of the country. So there is no security of tenure to the office of the governor. Many commissions suggested, like Panchi Commission, suggested that there must be a 5-year fixed tenure of the governor, and that should be not touched. That means once appointed, he must serve there for 5 years. Number one. Number two, governor must be appointed by a collegium, which includes the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha, then the chief justice of the country, definitely the prime minister, and the chief minister of the concerned state must also be consulted before the governor is being appointed, so as to have unbiased and impartial person sitting at the helm of the affairs. The third thing that was being recommended by many commissions is that no burnt out politicians must be appointed as the governors of the state, because those persons who have long political career actually are bipartisan. They always play party politics. They may favor certain political parties. So therefore, this article is exploring those things. The cabinet decision is subject to judicial scrutiny. Well, if definitely we know today that many books say that though there is no judicial review over the decision of the governor or the president under Article 72 and Article 161 respectively. But you must understand that if the decision of the governor and president is being found to be malified, blatantly biased, then the judiciary can review that decision. So the judicial review is there, but a limited judicial review and not a complete can be applied. This article explores the power nomination should be considered, जो कि we have already discussed. Now, the professor of Andhra University, R. Venkat Rao, he once said that the governor's post is useless when inert and dangerous when active. Matlab, when it is active, the post becomes really very dangerous, and when it is inert, it becomes useless. Well, ironically, in the Perarivalan episode, even the inertness of the governor proved to be dangerous. Why? Because he sent the advice for the consideration of the president. Right. Even Justice Sarkaria Commission said the same thing. He wanted the governor to act as a friend, philosopher, and guide to the Council of Ministers. It wanted the governor to be detached, to be a detached figure and not too intimately connected with the local politics of the state. The point is to ensure that the governor acts within the constitutional framework. Abolition of the post could create more problems than it intends to resolve. Right. Now, even there, they also explored the cases, the petty state of the Indian judiciary, where there is huge pendency of the cases, there is huge vacancy of the judges. It's being said that almost 50% of the strength of High Court, judges are still vacant. So, despite Supreme Court's recommendations, so in this sense, a necessary infrastructure must be provided at the judiciary. In the judiciary, justice delayed is definitely justice denied, and each organ of governance has to work in tandem and has to work towards the preservation and promotion of human rights. And the judicial infrastructure is required. We need to have regional benches of the Supreme Court to reduce the workload, because there is huge pendency of the cases, and increase the retirement age of the High Court judges from 65 to 70 years. Are you getting my point? So presently the retirement age of the High Court judges is 65. It has to be increased to 70 years. Well, it is a judgment on fundamental rights, because it's being said that they filed the mercy petition in the year 2002, and the decision didn't came till 2012. So every day they have to wake up to listen whether they would be live or dead, and this was being said to be the violation of their right to life with dignity, right to life, right? So their Article 21 was being violated. So it is a judgment on fundamental rights, though it does not explicitly say so. So beautiful article, which actually, and I'm pretty sure that they would be asking question on the pardoning powers of the governor and the president. Well, this I've explained it in words, and here I would take your attention to one such aspect, because these all things were we already discussed in the previous DNA session on the para-rebellion acquittal. Well, this case, Dhananjay Chatterjee alias Dhana versus State of West Bengal 1994. So Dhana versus State of West Bengal 1994, the Supreme Court said that the powers under Article 72 and Article 161 of the Constitution can be exercised by the central and state governments and not by the president or governor on their own. This is pretty sure that the president and governor do not have, these are not the discretionary powers of the president and governor. We must understand, guys, that Article 72 and Article 161 are not the discretionary powers of the president and governor. They are not on their own whims and fancies. They have to be decided by the state cabinet and the union cabinet, right? So, and this is being clearly said by Dhana versus State of West Bengal 1994, and this you can always quote in the examination. It would be very helpful for all the students preparing for the UPSC, and even the student for Clat examination. You must know this this judgment, Dhana versus State of West Bengal 1994, and at least you must know this fact that the Article 72 and 161, that is the judicial powers of the president and governor, are not discretionary powers. They can do so, they can exercise those powers only on the aid and advice of the cabinet. The advice of the appropriate government is binding on the head of the state. I hope it is clear. So that's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the session. Press the like button if you really and definitely you do give your suggestions, comments and the feedbacks, the bell icon for the regular updates. So this is all for today. Signing off.